Hey guys, we're back with the Texas Prison Transparency Project number 7. We've been gone a couple weeks trying to relocate, but we're done. We're here right outside of Fort Worth. So welcome. All right, we're going to wait a few minutes, make sure everybody's on here, see what we got going on. We got about 7 now. Hit the like button and share it, please. Share. All right, first things first. We had tornadoes this week. The Telford unit was hit by a tornado. Many families have been super concerned about their loved ones. I know some have had no contact. Some have had very little contact. We've got conflicting reports about food and water not being given out, being called, quote unquote, it's not a priority. I reached out to Warden Feasel, the executive director, Brian Collier, and the regional director, Albert Holmes. Susan Gunnels actually got back to me this afternoon, and this is her response. She said, "Thank you for your concern regarding the Telford area inmates. Most importantly, there were no injuries to inmates or staff. Our property assessments have identified the roof of one of the inmate housing buildings was damaged. As a result, approximately 80 inmates were moved to temporary housing in another part of the unit. The storm has had minimal impact to operations. Inmates are still receiving food and water. Hope this information will offer some assurance that efforts are being taken to ensure their care. Kind regards, Susie Gunnels." Now, with that being said, it doesn't say the amount of water they're being given or the type of food they're being given. It just simply states they're being fed and they're being given water. If there's any more concerns, please let me know, because we know that it can get a little bit iffy. I know they lost their kennels, which I pray that their animals were okay. I haven't heard anything about that, but I do know they lost kennels in some outbuildings. So I'm going to ask Shannon a question to see how this goes. Have you been through a natural disaster in prison?
Yes, I have, absolutely. And it can be scary. You know, what comes to mind, well, the biggest one that comes to mind was Hurricane Harvey. I was down around Corpus Christi and Cuero, Texas, when Hurricane Harvey swept through Houston, and they talked about evacuating our unit. We were only like 20 something miles from the coast and all that, and it got pretty bad. It got pretty ugly. All of our water was out, busted pipes, no electricity. They brought in, there was probably 20 something porta potties on every rec yard, and every now and then they would give us an opportunity to go use the porta potties. We had those for a week or more, and it got very, very nasty, very, very quickly. It was pretty bad, and it was in summertime. It was hot. Think flies, like lots of flies and all that. It was really bad. But aside from that specific, there was people living in the gym because one of the buildings flooded. The foundation was cracked, and it actually flooded the building. So they moved a lot of people where they were sleeping on the floors in the gyms. But what comes to mind more than that is in situations like that, for an inmate who's locked in a cell with no way out, no escape, it can be a little panicky when you think about it, like a hurricane, a tornado, a natural disaster. I mean, we even think about like if war broke out in the country and stuff like that. Man, you don't have nowhere to go. As an inmate, you're locked in there, and if the worst case scenario comes to happen, what are you going to do? You're just going to be locked in a box, going crazy, trying to find some kind of way out, any kind of way out, some type of way to preserve your life. And when it gets like that, it can be, like I said, almost panicky for an inmate.
Did they give you warning before? Like with the Harvey, you had warnings, obviously, with the news and stuff, but correct. A tornado, you have nothing.
No.
Especially early in the morning like that. Nothing.
No, and I've never heard like tornado sirens and stuff go off. I don't even know if they have them around units, which, are typically built out in the middle of nowhere.
That's true. That is true. Does anybody know the answer to that? Do they have sirens out there? Do they have any kind of warning before these storms hit? That'd be kind of really cool to know. That'd be good to know. But as far as Telford's concerned, that's the little bit I do know. It's not a whole lot. They're not telling us a whole lot. I know the media has been kind of shut out as well, including myself. So we're working on it, though. We're definitely working on it. So next thing up, some pretty heavy stuff, actually. We had some Estelle unit ranking officers and correctional officers arrested. As we know, over the last year, there's been several officers have now been formally indicted or formally charged with what is it?
Malicious something, right?
No, it's
Oppression?
oppression. Yeah, it's called official oppression.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it. Here, Google it real quick.
Yes. Official oppression.
Official oppression. We'll get it Googled here and we'll read the actual penal code for you. But I'm going to read the Estelle reports that we have on our TDCJ troll page. It's kind of long, so bear with me. It says a violent encounter at the Estelle unit has resulted in multiple officers being relieved of duty and arrested following an investigation into the alleged assault of an inmate by correctional staff. The inmate, whose name has not been released, was transferred to Estelle unit in mid-December to participate in the CIPP release program. From the time of his arrival, he reportedly engaged in multiple acts of misconduct, including assaulting staff members by throwing liquids and spitting. His behavior led to isolation from fellow inmates, eventually resulting in his placement on constant direct observation, known as CDO, for about a week. On February the 6th, mental health staff approved the inmate's release from CDO, providing he was not returned to his previous housing area. Due to staffing shortages, his move was delayed and a new relocation order was generated on February 7th. A lieutenant, noting that the housing area officer had established a good rapport with the inmate, confirmed with him that he would move without incident. The transfer was scheduled for after the evening meal. At approximately 5:30 p.m., the inmate was placed in hand restraints and escorted by the housing officer. Upon arriving at his new cell, Sergeant Jordan Johnson and Officer Eric Wigington took over this escort. Upon entering the cell, Sergeant Johnson instructed the inmate to kneel so his restraints could be removed. Another officer objected, citing the inmate's history of assaultive behavior, but Johnson proceeded. Once inside, the inmate allegedly made a threatening remark towards Sergeant Johnson's family. A physical altercation ensued. The inmate attempted to escape the cell, but was blocked by officers stationed at the door. Sergeant Johnson pulled him back inside and forced him to the floor, at which point Officer Wigington kicked the inmate in the head, causing an orbital fracture. At approximately 9 p.m., the inmate informed second shift staff that he was experiencing head and back pain. Medical personnel assessed him and EMS was called. He was transferred to a hospital, later moved to a second facility due to the severity of his injuries, and returned to the unit on February the 8th. So, y'all, he went to the hospital, was transferred, and then returned to the unit. That same day, Sergeant Johnson discussed the incident with Major Michael Wunderlich and other subordinates. The inmate's mother contacted the agency, prompting a review of surveillance footage. Wunderlich informed the assistant warden that no staff members had entered the cell during the altercation. However, 3 officers who had been present expressed discomfort with the situation and confided in a sergeant from a separate building. On or around February the 10th, the OIG's office launched an investigation based on reports from the uninvolved sergeant. By February 13th, the Walker County Special Prosecutor confirmed the case would be eligible for prosecution. That same day, all officers involved, including Sergeant Johnson, were relieved of duty by the Wright Regional Director. On February 20th, it was confirmed that Major Wunderlich had knowledge of the incident and failed to report it accurately. He was also relieved of duty. On February 26th, the 3 employees were arrested and booked into the Walker County Jail. Sources emphasized that the integrity of the Estelle unit staff played a key role in exposing the incident. Quote, "No Estelle unit staff with direct or indirect knowledge stood behind the officers involved other than Wunderlich." A source stated, "The unit did not protect its own. The integrity of the staff is what brought this incident to light." Now, with that said, I do have some staff reports that are saying that Wunderlich may or may not have had knowledge of this. I give everybody the opportunity to speak, so I've agreed to read a statement from an officer anonymously. It reads, "What I will say about Michael Wunderlich as a corrections officer up to ranking supervisor is this. I myself am a longtime seasoned officer. a veteran of the agency. I worked with him when he first came into the system, and as I watched him promote, it surprised me at first, but it was at the point that I got to know him as a very serious and competent former Marine that was very by the book. There is nothing wrong with that. Over the years, as he climbed ranks, I got to know him even better and saw that he was adjusting to his role in the agency's leadership, from on the unit as a supervisor and even during his time at the training academy. The Lopez escape really hit us all hard, and he was in the training academy as a captain, which really is where a lot of us went into full survival mode, especially him being out there, nature in the woods, looking for the enemy, something his military Marine training taught him to do. The bottom line is, over the 10 plus years I've known him from being a regular officer all the way to his most current high position of major, I've never seen him stick up for or stand for anything that was wrong. If he wanted you to do something or work a post and trusted you to do it, that's why you were there. He didn't micromanage, and he let you do your job, and as long as policy and procedure were being followed, he had your back and would support you. If you did or said anything wrong to coworkers or inmates, he would help you alleviate the issue and then counsel you one-on-one about what you did wrong and what to do and what not to do next time. And that was your fair warning and chance. He has never or would never back up or stand for anything being done wrong. He is fair, but he doesn't have it in him to lie to anyone or cover anything up. He cares too much about his people, his job, his responsibility, and duty to the state of Texas to protect his staff and the inmates he is responsible for care, custody, and control of, to do anything that they are accusing him of doing. Those who did it and lied to him about it and about the whole thing, those are the ones responsible, capable, and culpable. But Michael Wunderlich absolutely is not. I don't know the man. Like I said, I'm just giving people the opportunity to speak. It's also been reported to the troll page that a lot of the officers at Estelle believe that this has been an unfair move, specifically for Wunderlich, not for the others that were involved. It's also my understanding that three employees that reported this incident have also been fired for reporting it. And that's not okay either.
Sounds like retaliation.
It does to me. It does to me too. Absolutely. Have you witnessed things like this before on a unit?
Yes. Unfortunately, as far as officers beating up an inmate, most especially an inmate in restraints, which is at least 8 times out of 10 if it comes to that. Mm-hmm. And it happens more than most people would probably believe. But what I find most surprising in this case and the few similar cases that have preceded it is the fact that there's actually a district attorney who's willing to prosecute on it, to prosecute correctional officers from the penitentiary. You know, that is something new. That is something that has very rarely if ever happened before. You know, so I find that surprising. As far as this Major Wunderlich, if he's a good guy and his character is clean, I hope he comes out clean, right? But at the same time, even if he comes out clean and is exonerated of this, it also serves as a warning, you know, even a major or above, you're not out of reach if you're crooked or if you're corrupt. If you try to cover up stuff like this that happens on your unit, you know, you will be held culpable. You will be held responsible. And that is a warning sound going out to all of the COC out there. It's not just the foot soldier, the lowly CO, so to speak, that's going to catch the flack. Okay. It's going to go up the chain. You know, if you're clean, you're clean. But if you're not, get right.
Absolutely. Okay, so official oppression in the state of Texas. It is defined in Chapter 39.03 of the Penal Code. The misdemeanor charge having 2-year statute of limitations, while felony charges have a 3-year statute. Examples of official oppression: intentionally arresting someone without cause, intentionally searching someone without cause, intentionally denying someone a right or privilege, and intentionally sexually harassing somebody. It's an abuse of power, essentially, in layman's terms, is what it is. And I believe this is now the 3rd or 4th case that has been filed within the last year of official oppression. So we're coming around. People are starting to definitely. Yes,
they found a charge that can stick, and it's an official charge. They found something that fits the situation and can and will stick. Mm-hmm. So, yes.
So to the staff members at Estelle that spoke up, I'm very proud of you. thank you for having the courage to do so. And I really, really hope that your warden and the rest of your staff mates and your brothers and sisters in gray back you up, because you did the right thing.
Integrity matters.
Yes, integrity is everything, especially in corrections. It really is. It will say a lot to the inmates in there. You'll be amazed at what kind of respect is going to be given because of that. It's definitely leading by example. And one more thing based on this, we did have another from the inbox report come in from another staff member. It says, let's speak on this Estelle thing. First off, the major in question wasn't even on the unit at the time of said U of F, was never even notified of said U of F until days later, and at that time, proper procedure was followed. There was, however, a lieutenant and a captain at the unit during this time. There were more officers involved. So is TDCJ really doing the right thing with this, or are they just effing the people they want to F? Come on, Mr. Britt. Are we holding everyone accountable, or just the ones that don't play along with your BS? Do what you want with this information. There's just so much more to the story than what's being put out there. So again, I'm going to repeat that this is all alleged crimes. Yes, they have been arrested for it. Formal indictments will have to be made, but we will see what happens. We'll definitely see what happens on that. As an inmate, how would you feel about officers that actually stood up and did something about this?
I'd be a bit amazed, because just like we talk about prison culture, there's also a culture among correctional officers. And, for somebody who would take an official stance against another officer and, call them out and be willing to stand on it,
right?
That you did wrong, you did this. No, stop trying to lie about it. I'll say it out loud and without hiding behind anything.
Right.
That is rare. And that takes a different type of courage, a different type of strength. That's where I suppose it comes down to what matters more to you. The opinion of some people that you associate with, that you work with. And I know the working relationship goes deeper than that. I understand that, but what matters more, the opinion of many, if not most, of your coworkers, or your personal integrity, your personal morals, your sense of what is right and what's wrong, your decency as a human being? What's more valuable to you? And I know that the people that stand out in the open and speak the truth, they'll be ridiculed, they'll be sniped at by many of their coworkers, probably the majority, and that's going to be hard to endure. You may get, messed up assignments. You may, times may get hard on you, but again, as long as it's for a righteous cause, can you withstand it or not?
Well, like I said, we definitely appreciate you as advocates standing up for what's right, because the negative prison culture definitely needs to start taking a shift. And I really, truly feel in my heart that that's starting to happen with people speaking up and starting to do the right thing, getting more involved. People just are starting to care, and we really appreciate that. But while we're on the topic of use of forces, there was another one at the Hodge unit.
Imagine that.
All right. The Hodge unit information is as follows. 2:27, I got the update at 8:32 p.m. It was a UOF on Sunday when he spit on an officer. Then that same officer was signed to his row the next day. The UOF was not the same day as the assault. Update 8:05. According to an employee, the inmate assaulted officers, at which time of use a use of force ensued. The inmate was hospitalized and is currently in the hospital. The inmate has not passed away, and this I have confirmed as of 2 hours ago. He has not passed away. OIG has been made aware. Admin offices, they've been at Hodge since, I guess, the day after, which would be 2:27, 2:28. The event occurred on the L wing to an inmate that was on CDO Tuesday night. So again, I'm seeing a pattern that these inmates are coming off of CDO, and then these assaults are happening. So constant direct observation is usually something that has to do with suicide watches. So that should tell you right there, they're not mentally stable as it is. So maybe we should start getting more involved with these mental health cases and be a little bit more aware of mental health, because clearly, in my opinion, as a mental health, specialist, it's what's leading to these things. TDCJ Troll just said, just FYI, no indictment is needed. All charges against the cell unit staff were misdemeanors. That's unless other charges are added later. And that is correct. I wasn't sure on what level they were trying to do this yet. I know they had arrested yet, or they'd been arrested, but no indictment had been made yet. So the Hodge unit, again, what do you think?
What I wonder about is somebody who's obviously in a disrupted mental state. You're just coming off of suicide watch, as we more often refer to it, because that's the vast majority of what CDO is. And so whatever the case is, your mind is unstable. Whenever you see a psych doctor or psychologist or something, sometimes it's usually on a screen, and they check all the boxes and okay, y'all can let him out. What should TDCJ do at that point? What are they able to do? With the staffing issues and everything else that they have, that's what I wonder about. Like, for a person coming out of that situation, what would be a better situation before putting them directly back in GP? Maybe there should be an in-between stage. I'm not sure exactly what it is. That's what I'm thinking about. But something in between. Okay, you come out of CDO, now you go over here for the next 72 hours. And then if you're stable, then we'll put you back in general population.
So we need to come up with a step that's in between.
Yes, that's what I think.
I agree. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Definitely open to these things. When the board meeting comes up, April 25th, these are things that we can present to them, as possible suggestions on how to start eliminating some of these problems, or maybe not eliminate them, but helping to avoid them, help maybe decrease the incidence, and all that stuff. So there we are on that. Now, lastly, a medical issue that occurred at the Wright unit that ended in a death. All right, from our inbox, it says, I have information about the death on the Wright unit Tuesday night. The inmate went to medical on Monday and was seen by a nurse. He then complained that he was vomiting blood. The nurse gave him Pepto and sent him back to his housing assignment. The inmate complained on Tuesday to a guard that he was still feeling bad and had fainted. The same nurse said he better take that Pepto and go on. Later that night, the inmate died. Apparently, the cell was covered in blood and he had a bag filled with blood that he had been vomiting. This death was definitely put on medical. But again, is this a staffing issue? Is this a medical issue? Is this not simply paying attention and not taking what an inmate says for its full value? Because yes, we're not dumb. We know that some inmates will say anything they can to get out of their cells and to get some attention, but it's not always the case. And you have to look at these. If he was really losing blood that quickly, that tells me his vital signs were probably not stable. Your blood pressure probably dropped.
Did they identify it as his appendix?
I'm not quite sure on that yet. It's going to be pending autopsy, but there was enough blood. He was losing blood from somewhere, which tells me his blood pressure, his blood sugar, all of that stuff would have definitely been not. The thing is,
there's more than enough evidence there,
correct,
to justify taking a man to medical. You're throwing up blood. Look at my cell. Look at this bag of bloody vomit I got here. That's more than enough. They call a sergeant, they get an escort, and they take you directly to medical. Right. And then it's in medical's hands. They have to make a proper diagnosis. Okay, something is obviously wrong. Let's figure it out. That's what their profession is. That's what they're supposed to be there to do. Now,
were they doing their rounds?
Some medical personnel are really good. They care about people, and that's why they're in the medical field.
Right.
At the same time, there's many that don't really care attitude, and I don't want to deal with it. And, they tend to categorize everybody into one group, to stereotype, like all of y'all are just wanting this and that, or whatever the case may be. Right.
Right. So, well, that goes back to my question: were they actually doing their rounds? if they didn't catch this man
Mhm.
with blood everywhere? I mean,
I've only been on the rare unit that officers actually walk the runs and do rounds.
well, that was my next
Yeah.
question for you.
It's sometimes they do every now and then. I mean, technically it's supposed to be like once an hour, just like you're supposed to get an in and out
Is that what
opportunity.
policy is? Once an hour?
That's my belief. I haven't read the black and white, but yes, that's what's always
I know that's
said.
SEG, right? Or is that
No,
always
that's
everywhere?
supposed to be GP.
Okay.
Technically, they're supposed to run an in and out, open the cell doors and allow you 5 minutes. They do it a couple of different ways. Sometimes in and out, they'll roll all the doors at once, and you got roughly 5 minutes or so. They'll start at one cell and work their way around, closing the doors as they go. Other places will do a in. They'll roll the doors. You got an option, go in, close the door. They'll go do the next section, and then they'll come back and they'll allow you an out. So they do it two different ways. So supposedly it's supposed to be once an hour. Does it ever happen once an hour? Super, super rare. Yeah.
So how accurate is count during nighttime if they're not doing the rounds?
Nighttime. Okay, you specified nighttime. Counts during the day tend to be fairly on point.
Okay.
You know, because that's a serious matter. That's one of the few issues that'll get a officer walked off the unit.
Right.
You know, what they call paper counting. One officer counts, and then the other officer just copies down their count from their piece of paper because they don't want to get up and go walk the runs. Right. That can get you walked off a unit. So count's a little more serious. Nighttime, however, is a lot more lax because there's no higher authority there. You know, you probably have a lieutenant running the night shift, or on a max unit, you'll have maybe a captain, maybe, you know, but so it's a lot more lax on nights. And I would still venture out there to say that 80% of the time they're going to do the counts.
So is this why we have more deaths overnight, or I should say, deceased inmates found in the mornings?
Yes, but also think about if a guy dies in his sleep,
True.
or even if somebody is killed and put in their bed and made it to look like they're asleep.
Right.
I mean, it's not like they're going to go to every cell and wake everybody up and make sure you're alive.
Are they supposed to?
I don't know for 100% fact. I know that when I was on the Stevenson unit in Cuero, Texas, there were, at least for a time, I guess it was like a trend, right? Many things trend for a while in prison and they go away. They would, the morning count, 6 o'clock in the morning, there's many officers that would come through and they would actually wake everybody up as they're going cell to cell. Move for me. Let me see your face.
Right.
Actually, they used to say that, let me see your face a lot because they want to see if you're banged up, if you got black eyes and all that.
Makes sense to me.
So yeah, people hated getting woke up in the morning. They could,
I mean,
go away, leave me alone.
Makes total sense to me, especially with everything going on. I definitely want to get a look on people.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about these recent events, medical, you know, anything? You know, I'll give you a couple, 30 seconds or a minute or so to ask it while I look up these House bills real quick.
Yes, we have legislation coming.
We do.
Now we can just get some of it passed. That's the hard part.
For sure.
The first step is just getting the bills presented. Then you have to drum up enough support for them to actually get them passed through. And that's a very difficult thing.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so you want to go over SEG? We're going to start with the bills that are going to be basically geared towards restrictive housing, SEG, security threat group members, things like that.
So this one's on me. House Bill 3721. Study on solitary confinement practices and effects. Solitary confinement has long been a contentious issue, and there is a growing body of research demonstrating its detrimental effects on mental health and well-being. Unfortunately, the long-term consequences of solitary confinement in Texas, particularly among high-security individuals in categories such as G4, G5, STG, ALU, and death row, have not been sufficiently studied. House Bill 3721 would mandate a comprehensive study of the impact of solitary confinement, allowing us to evaluate the human, social, and financial costs of this practice. As the state moves towards reducing restrictive housing population, this study is vital in ensuring the Texas Department of Criminal Justice upholds its commitment to reform and provides data to guide future policies. Okay, so
Define that.
what they're asking for is a comprehensive study of the detrimental effects that this has on inmates. It doesn't make them better. I think everybody knows that. Okay, putting somebody in solitary confinement for years on end, does not make anybody better. Okay, that's an obvious given. Now, there's been many studies done on solitary confinement and the detrimental mental health effects that it has upon people. What comes to my mind is I've read the article myself that they published in Rolling Stone. I forget the year. I believe I actually have a copy of the article, but and it tells you like the origin of segregation, where the practice started at in the U.S. The Supreme Court, it states in this article, banned the practice. They banned solitary confinement for a while, like in the late 1800s, the late 1800s. They banned it, no more, no mas. And but they brought it back in like the 1920s or something like that. It came back into effect and started being used again. And I've witnessed it firsthand, man. So many people, and it's usually in the first year, the first year or so around that area. That's the make or break time, whether you're going to survive or not, mentally. And sadly, it's been my personal experience. I spent something like 8.5 going on 9 years in administrative segregation. Okay. And wow, it's a whole nother world. But it's been my experience. My personal guesstimation is about 85% of the people back there, that it breaks them mentally to one degree or another, to where they're just a little bit off, for the rest of their life, have odd quirks or whatever, or they'll just gaze off into space, or there's so many different presentations.
Does it rewire your brain? I mean, in a way, because it's like a trauma response.
It has to, right? Because it's a extreme new environment to cope with, and so many people, they don't know how to live with themselves, and nothing or nobody else, and that's just part of it. Because even outside of learning how to live by yourself with almost no human contact, no significant or meaningful human contact, that's part of it. But outside of that, all you hear, all you're surrounded by 24/7, and I mean all hours of day and night. There's almost never a quiet time. I don't care if it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever. There's people screaming, hollering, beating and banging, kicking the doors. I mean, you name it, singing, trying to talk to each other across, from cell to cell down the run, or
loud,
even into the whole other section. People that make speakers and they're playing music, blasting as loud as they can get the speaker to go. It's just a sonic chaos,
Is it way different in GP, or is it about the same?
Both. It's way different, but many of these things are the same. The sound of prison. I actually wrote a poem about it once, but the sound of prison is it's chaotic. It's a never-ending assault upon your senses, and you just get numb to it. You learn to ignore it. Like I tell people, all that is just background noise to me. It's just like white noise that I can just ignore. I don't even bother it. I know it's there, but I just don't acknowledge it. And people have to find coping mechanisms, whether you get lost in reading, like that was my escapism. I learned to love to read, and I read tens of thousands of books. Right.
Okay.
But yes, it's definitely a terrible thing. It's not getting any better. It's not a solution. That's the bottom line. You have problems, you have problem inmates. Administrative segregation, it may get them out of the way and away from assaulting people, but it's not a solution. It's a momentary solution. It's not a long-term solution.
So Officer Trent here just said that twice an hour security checks supposed to wake for living, breathing bodies per count. So
wow, I've never seen it done that often.
So yeah, thank you for answering that question for you.
Yes.
All right. So our next bill, it's House Bill 1409, limitations on administrative segregation. House Bill 1409 seeks to establish firm limits on the use of administrative segregation for disciplinary offenses, ensuring that individuals are not subjected to prolonged confinement without clear and justifiable cause. Prolonged solitary confinement can cause severe harm, and this bill provides a balanced approach that prioritizes fairness, rehabilitation, and the dignity of all incarcerated individuals. While security is important, we must also protect the rights and well-beings of those within our justice system. That one's pretty plain. You know, it says it.
It limits the time that somebody can be put back there.
Correct.
Because like I said, that 1 year mark seemed to be the make or break. You know, I've seen people go back there for assault on staff and they come up for review in like 6 months or in 1 year, right? And the time limits need to be established, you know, because just putting somebody back there and you're supposed to see a state classification if you're in SEG once a year. And man, it's just, no, it's just not right.
Can you imagine being locked away for 23, 24 plus hours a day? I can't imagine that, going from being in the world, even a normally sane person, it would wear you out. So can you imagine people that have these true mental illnesses, which a lot of them that end up in psych do, what that actually will do to a person? Like
it's dehumanizing.
I can't imagine it.
It is utterly dehumanizing. You know, sometimes I would come in from a rec yard, or I had a couple of rare visits, and I'd come back from like visitation or something, and I'm being escorted in there and I'm shackled down. When I get back in there and the smell and the sound and just looking at the place, you know, I realized that these are human kennels. It's exactly what they are. These are human kennels and they smell the same. It's horrible.
All right. So next one is going to be in reference to security threat group members, AKA gang members. All right. House Bill 3725, ending indefinite solitary confinement for security threat group members. Too many individuals in Texas are placed in restrictive housing for extended periods, sometimes for years, not due to their behavior, but simply because of their affiliation with a security threat group. Or, I'm going to throw this one in there, or being accused of being affiliated with one, which is happening and it's not true. House Bill 3725 aims to end the practice of indefinite solitary confinement based solely on group affiliation, shifting toward a more effective behavior-based approach. This bill gives incarcerated individuals the opportunity to demonstrate changed behavior through rehabilitation, breaking the cycle of isolation, and fostering personal growth. Replacing status-based confinement with behavior-based assessments will improve both individual outcomes and public safety. You were an STG member.
Correct.
How would this affect you back then?
Well, first, so many people are locked into SEG for being a confirmed gang member. These are, you know, the vast majority of these people are people that have never done anything other than be affiliated or associated, right? Or accused of such even, because I've seen many people that are accused of being the wrong thing when they're actually something else, and people that aren't anything at all, but they've been confirmed. And one thing at a time. For one, a lot of these guys, they've never assaulted anybody, probably not even another inmate, much less staff members or anything else. They don't have no violent case history. They might not even be disruptive. They might, for all intents and purposes, be practically a model inmate.
Majority of them are drug cases.
Yes. And to lock such a person back there for years on end, you know, and then you got to sign up for this one program that'll give you the chance to get out. And it's only on one unit now. It used to be two, but it's back to just being on one unit. Right. And the waiting list can be like years long. You got to go through a year or more of just investigation. Right. They're just going to watch you for a year and read your mail and do a couple of random house searches and stuff like that for like a year before they'll even put you on the waiting list. So that's 1 year. Then there's a couple more years on the waiting list. And man, by then you might be a totally different person. You might even be the same, might not even be the same person anymore. Right. I've seen it like where family members would show up to visit somebody and it would just be terrible, man. Like they didn't even recognize this person anymore. And they go down there and their mind is messed up and I mean, it can be really ugly.
I
You know?
can totally see that.
So the injustice of locking somebody in solitary confinement for years on end, simply for association, even affiliation, even if they're truly a confirmed gang member, it still needs to be based upon behavior.
Yes.
The one exception that I can think of is if two gangs are at war in prison and actively killing each other, lock them up. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Lock them up so that bring that to a stop. But there still has to be a process to deal with it. Don't just lock them up and throw away the key and forget about it. You still have to deal with it. STEG is a temporary solution, a momentary solution. It is not a long-term solution.
All right, Lisa, to answer your questions, are there any issues at the women's units? Most definitely there are. I just personally am a men's facility advocate, and obviously he's been in men's facilities. So that's kind of where my focus is. However, yes, absolutely. They do have them. And there's a Lioness is an advocacy group out there for women. They are 1,000,000% legitimate. They know what they're doing, and they're rock stars for the women's units. Marcy Marie, Jennifer Toon, they're great. Like if you need help with women's units, please feel free to seek them out because they really know what they're doing with the women's units. And do these bills already have sponsors? Yes, the ones that we are talking about already have sponsors. They already have in play, and they will be moving forward to see if we can get votes on them. All right, so now we're going to move out of the SEG areas and just go into general population bills. All right, House Bill 1852 is relating to authority of a court to reduce or modify a defendant's sentence. No, I mean, my question is based on what? I don't really know a whole lot about it, but
the criteria for it.
Right. House Bill 676 relating to the award of good conduct time to inmates. We already have good conduct time to majority of inmates.
If you're a non-aggravated offender.
Well, that's next. So next is House Bill 2940 relating to the award of good conduct time to certain inmates, changing parole eligibility.
Yes, because it's always been my experience, 25 years in prison, and anybody that has a ag or 3G type offense, good time doesn't mean anything to us. Like,
right.
Part of the disciplinary process is okay, and we're gonna take 200 days of good time from you. Like, what does that mean? That don't mean nothing. Like, okay, it doesn't mean anything to an ag offender.
Well, that's the thing. So, Lau, it has been my understanding that yes, the second one we're talking about here, where they're going to give good time credit, will affect
3G.
Some of the 3G, not all of them, but some of them. However, let me kind of break it down for you. I'll use my son's time periods kind of as an example. He has 8 more years before he can see parole. And if he were to get good time credit for the next 8 years, it would only take about 8 months of his sentence off. So as great as this bill sounds, it's really not a whole lot. You're still not taking half their sentence off. It's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. So, every little bit counts.
Every little bit counts. That's still 8 months of life.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yes.
So don't get discouraged by that because, it can change. There's programs. There's all kinds of stuff that can go into play as far as good credit. So, Lau, I'm hopeful as well of this bill. So don't get discouraged about it because, our kiddos need it. All right. Bill 1969 relating to providing inmates with certain documents on release or discharge, changing a fee. Not real sure what that one's about.
Charging a fee, perhaps.
It says changing a fee. All right. SB 828 relating to the provision of services by the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to offenders with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Mental health care, medical care. We need that.
It's going to take a lot of funding because they need a lot of it.
But do you realize that if the TDCJ actually has the population statistics to qualify themselves for a mental health facility, and that opens up so much more funding? Like there's enough inmates in there that have mental health problems,
Absolutely.
addiction problems, that it all opens it up to be mental health facilities if they truly wanted to.
Intriguing.
And they could have the funding.
That's intriguing. You know, you need the qualified personnel to work in such places,
I agree.
which means that somebody's going to have to pay these people a worthy wage, and that might be what it comes down to.
Or you have to find doctors, nurses, psychiatrists that actually want to do this job and that aren't kind of the bottom of the barrel of the profession.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other issue.
And there's plenty of good people that just
Yes.
want to do good in
Absolutely.
those categories, you know,
Absolutely.
like Doctors Without Borders type people
Correct.
and stuff.
Correct. There's, I mean, I think there's plenty of college medical students that would go in there, you know. Yes,
Yeah.
Eclipse, there is so much that's changing that the general public doesn't know about. That's kind of what we're trying to do, you know.
Bring a little bit of awareness to the possibilities that are on the horizon.
Yes. Yes. You know, house bills are the big thing for me. It takes roughly about 9 legislative sessions to get a bill passed. So some of these bills have been into play for many, many years. You know,
I waited forever on the youthful offender bill to be passed, and it made it to the floor more than once. Or no, excuse me, it never made it to the floor.
mm-hmm.
And then from what I was told, it finally made it to the floor and got passed. And dear Greg Abbott vetoed it because he didn't like the way it was worded.
That's a big thing is wording, especially with lawsuits and everything else. So be careful with wording. So I'm also going to touch on some news that I covered months back. There was an incident at the Styles unit where they believed an inmate died of a drug overdose. The story stated that another inmate gave him CPR and was going to be indicted for murder. Came back that this inmate was not indicted. Well, that story has completely flipped.
A lot.
Completely flipped a lot. It actually made the news media yesterday that the inmates gave this man the drugs purposely. And then once he was incapacitated, he was drug into his cell and he was choked out and killed. So I just wanted to update you guys on that because I don't want to be said that I misspoke about something. I was just not informed, but now we are.
So yes, not a good deed being punished, but an evil deed.
Correct.
That's been found out. That is premeditated murder is what that is.
It is. It is. Now I'm gonna let Shannon talk for a little bit. He's got a lesson for men.
Yes, totally different topic, but something that I've discovered out here, and we hear a lot about it, but experiencing it is totally different. You know, for somebody like me that did so much time, I never really would have been on the internet before I got out. You know, I didn't do cell phones on the inside, you know, none of that. So almost no experience, right? And we go off what we hear. You know, we hear all kinds of crazy stories and we think some of them sound like conspiracies and we're skeptical. We don't know what's true, what's not. But this whole internet and social media thing is so wild out here, you know, and we have no training, no true understanding of all the stuff that's going on. And you always hear about all these scams, and there's so many different scams out here, so many different ways, you know, and it's just a lot, right? And you can be tricked and trapped and into something that you think you're like, how am I supposed to do this social media thing and like make friends and meet people all over the place? And man, it seems like at least 50% of them are phony. You know, they're and that might be conservative. I really don't know. But, you know, there's so many people out there, and it kind of just makes me nervous about using social media at all. I mean, I want to because it can be a great asset and a great way to network and meet people that aren't in your immediate area, you know, and so much more. It has so much potential. But at the same time, there's so much shady stuff out there, man. And people will present themselves in one way, you know, and they'll carry it on. It don't even have to be a one conversation thing. You know, you'll meet somebody and you'll think that you're beginning to know this person, beginning to get to know them. but all the while it's just a scam. It's all a game. And there's so many different types of scams out there, whether they're trying to extort you, and it usually comes down to $1 one way or another. It's going to come around to they want something out of you. They want to try to get you for some money or something like that, and until they're going to befriend you and coerce you and finesse you until they get a hold of something that they think is compromising, and then they can use that to threaten you and like, send me $1,000 right now, or I'm going to try to destroy your life. And like, it's crazy, man. And click on anything online, I get emails or something, man, and it's like, click here for this, man. It's a wonderful opportunity and a great deal or whatever. Like, if I click that, man, are they going to get me? I don't know. I don't like how far you can go until, they get you. A guy told me the other day, a coworker of mine, excuse me. He told me that don't never answer the phone with the word yes. Right? I was like, what? He said, yeah, if you get a phone call and you answer the phone and they're like, hello, is this Shannon Marshall? And you say yes, that they can like record you saying yes and use your voice recognition or whatever. And like, they can do all kinds of stuff with that right there. Right. So like he told me, don't never answer the phone with yes, always say who's asking or why are you calling, or just get in the habit of saying something else. Don't never say yes. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, man. And I asked Ashley, like, is that true? Can some people really do that? Mm-hmm. She says yes.
Yes, absolutely. And Eclipse, 100% you are correct. That's sort of a little bit of the basis we're talking about. Actually, she said social media is a trap. I'm sure Collier's watchdogs are here looking for people like me. So in the last 3 weeks, I have actually been called a murderer. I have been accused for working for Brian Collier, to the point where they said that they can produce my paycheck stubs. I mean,
please do.
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I mean, please. Yeah. So that's another reason I've kind of taken a step back for the last couple of weeks, because there was things coming extremely quickly on a very personal level being attacked. Mm-hmm. So
I mean, who likes being persecuted, especially when you're trying to do good work?
Yeah. So, but I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not afraid of you. Just so you know. She's tough. I'm not afraid of you. Yeah. Just saying. Yes. Anything else we got today?
No, everything's moving along. We're back. We should be on here every Thursday. Mm-hmm. Questions, concerns, hot topics, and issues. If we're not already aware of them, please reach out, make us aware. We want to have true transparency on, just to call a spade, a very broken system that affects a lot of lives, literally millions of lives. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there might be 160,000 inmates or some such incarcerated in Texas right now, but all of their families, their loved ones, their friends, it affects so many people that it's literally in the millions. We want to be able to help. We want to be able to do as much as we can. Are we going to be able to fix the system? We don't know. But is that a worthy reason not to try? Absolutely not. So we're here to try. Okay.
Eclipse, if I don't know your screen name on here, but I actually know you and have spoken to you, reach out to me in DM. Regardless, I need you to reach out to me because I'd like to speak with you. I totally agree with you. You said been doing it for a long time. As they say, it's time to flip the script. Absolutely it is. And I feel like we are in that moment and in that forward momentum where people are starting to actually listen, and they're open-minded to it, including some of the administration. I mean, look at the arrests that are taking place with these officers. I mean,
things are changing. Sometimes it's a Band-Aid, but sometimes it's a precursor to true change. Mm-hmm. Let's hope that it's for true change and keep on pushing for it.
Thank you, Shelley. I agree with that. Everybody that knows me knows I speak from my heart. Integrity is nothing but probably the most important thing to me. And I haven't always been a person of integrity because I've done bad things in my life. That's why we're here. So from this point on, and what I've been doing for the last 2 years, I really try to be a person of integrity, and I do everything intentionally with very, very much intention. And it's always a good intent. I may not deliver it the best way I can possible, but I try. And my heart is 1,000,000% in that. And he can vouch for that.
1,000,000%. Yes. And when you have integrity, man, you just feel so much better about yourself. You're more comfortable in your own skin, but you can go to sleep and wake up every morning and actually feel good about yourself. How many people can truly say that they like themselves? You know, in a true sense, most people never even think about it. But if you just ask yourself the honest question, you know, do I like who I am? Do I like myself as a man or as a woman, as a person? Right. And that's important. You know, if the question doesn't have a clear answer, then it's something that we need to work on, something that an individual, a person, you might need to work on, you know, because life is just so much more fulfilling whenever you're happy with who you are. So be the person you want to be, man.
Clips, I hear you. I hear you. Lau, yes, the families absolutely suffer a lot too. And that's another thing I'm going to start integrating here very, very soon is I'd like to have more families on here. Moms, wives, daughters, sisters, brothers, fathers, former inmates, officers.
It's coming.
I would like to have officers on here to give their perspective.
We welcome all perspectives.
You know, I'm not going to press you for information you don't want to talk about. You can come and say, hey, look, this is off the board. I'm not talking about it at all. I'm cool with that. But I would like to know your input because we cannot change what's not acknowledged. Things have started to be, they've got to be acknowledged, you know. And
officer, ex-inmate, advocate,
yes,
family member, true transparency, true communication. That's how stuff gets done. That's how we come to agreement, come to consensus. Find the compromises that work and move us forward.
You know, I'm constantly saying that we have to all bridge the gap together, and we've got to form the bridge. You know, the board meeting that's open for public commenting is coming up on April the 25th in Austin, Texas. The location is to be announced. Time is to be announced. But I'm going to beg and plead for everybody that can be there. You don't have to speak if you don't choose to. Just a united front of not anger, but just, hey, look, we're here, we care, we're serious, and we want to help you help us. How can we make this change? It's very necessary. I think last year in April, we had probably the biggest turnout for people that came. We need to do more. The public needs to do more. The families that are that are affected, that we need to do more. You know, I will be there. I plan to speak. Last year I spoke about K2, which I'm sure I'll do again this year. That is my absolute platform. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Speaking of K2, the tip line.
The tip line.
One thing, guys.
You're going to want to hear this. Yes.
All right. So we've had 3 different emails come back. I'm not even going to dig for my phone. I'll just give you the synopsis of it. All right. So the team and I put in an email asking the OIG's office, and then actually we did a Private Information Act request as well, asking who is in charge of this tip line. How is it being sorted? How is it being, kept anonymous? How is it safe? OIG's office said that they are not in control of it. It is TDCJ's job. Okay. And then Amanda Hernandez replied yesterday, and this one I'm going to read because, yeah. Okay. All right. It says TDCJ received your inquiry to the PIA email address regarding tip lines. Under the Texas Public Information Act, state agencies like TDCJ are obligated to provide records that are collected, assembled, or maintained in connection with transactions of official business upon request. The PIA does not require TDCJ to provide answers to questions. However, the office who handles PIA sent me your inquiry so I could provide some information to you. How nice. First, I want to thank you for reaching out on this important topic. TDCJ is dedicated to transparency, and I'm happy to answer your questions. There are multiple tip lines available to report suspicious or criminal activity inside TDCJ. All of these tip lines are anonymous unless the individual wishes to identify themselves. The OIG's office operates the TDCJ Crime Stoppers tip line. Okay. The OIG's office operates the TDCJ Crime Stoppers tip line. OIG crime analyst receives tips via phone, mail, or website. These tips are then sent to OIG investigators to investigate the crime. But OIG said it was TDC. These tips are anonymous unless the individual chooses to identify themselves. For tips that are not anonymous, the person can receive a cash reward if the tip leads to an arrest. If a tip is received that is not relevant to TDCJ, OIG sends the tip to the appropriate Crime Stoppers entity outside of TDCJ. I'm confused. TDCJ also operates an inmate tip line and a public tip line. So were we not just talking about a public tip line? Or
Yes.
I'm confused. Inmates can send a tip directly to TDCJ by using the inmate telephone system or their inmate tablets. These tips are anonymous unless the caller chooses to identify themselves. Only select TDCJ analysts not on a unit have access to the tip line. When a tip is received, an information bulletin is created. Even if the person leaves a tip, identifies themselves, this bulletin does not have the information on it. These bulletins are then sent to the unit wardens for investigations. These tips are then deleted from the tip line. Tips that involve potential criminal activity is shared with the OIG. If an inmate uses their tablet to make a call, they can delete their call log. The public can send a tip directly to TDCJ by using the tip line phone number. These tips are anonymous unless the caller chooses to identify themselves. These tips follow the same process as the inmate tip line. Please let me know if you have any other questions or wish for me to expand on anything. Now hold that thought. Today, just today.
A lot of statements made in there.
And I got a question on it. Today, the warden from Hughes answered the question like this. The tip line goes to our Office of Inspector General. Some of that information is sent to the unit administration, but some of it is not shared, as the OIG are state police officers, and they may be working in a larger case or collecting enough evidence for prosecution. Signed, John Lopez, Warden 2, Alfred D. Hughes Unit. All right, so.
What is it? Who's running it? Who's in charge? Who gets the information?
Do they know? Now, here's my bigger question. It said that inmates can make phone calls and report these things, but don't you have to have like voice recognition to get a line out? Like, are they going to call through Securus? What's the deal?
Yes, you use the phone in the day room or on your tablet, and there is a number. They have it posted on the wall.
So they can actually, okay.
Yeah, you can actually do it. And if you do it on your tablet keeps track of your call log, but there's a place where you can delete it afterwards. So that part, it does work like that. Where the information goes, who's actually in charge of it, who gets to see it, who it's shared with, all of that is still very unclear. And these people are just passing the buck back and forth. It goes to TDC. No, it goes to OIG. Well, it goes to OIG, but we give some of it to TDC.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no transparency there at all whatsoever. And that first email, that's just trying to bury you and confuse you with a bunch of minutia, bunch of stuff that is almost irrelevant. And there's several contradictions just in that one statement. I think that lady is the one that's confused more than us.
I don't know what to think about it. All I know is that this idiotic 15-day
lockdown
pilot program is nothing but a huge problem. And yes, Pickett K2 is all over. They know exactly who's using it and who doesn't. Let me also, people say that they cannot UA test for K2. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. However, are they choosing to or not? They might be saying they are.
Well, the big thing, we know that such a test exists.
Yeah,
yes. The thing in prison is, as with so many other things, it usually comes down to $1. And
But
it's
the
always been supposed that TDC is not going to pay for the UA cups that will actually find K2, that they're more expensive. But we looked them up ourselves, and they're really not that expensive, like $2 and something a piece.
Yep.
Or if you buy them in bulk, they're like a lot less than that, right?
So
Like
if you bought 1,000 or more, they were like $1 a piece. I mean, it was stupid.
And obviously TDC needs them by the thousands, right?
You know,
So,
the other rumor is, oh, it's not K2, it's bug spray and this and that. Sure, some of it is. Some of it is. So some people are actually intentionally harming other people by using paint thinner on paper, bug sprays to try to make a quick buck and claim it's K2.
mhm.
If you guys don't believe me, email me, message me, and I will give it to you. But there are plenty of death reports that I have that specifically name the chemicals in K2 to the strain, down to the strain. People are dying from K2. Everything else that they're dying from, it's not roach spray. It's not paint thinner. It's yes, correct. That is why it was supposedly went to digital mail. You want to see the actual decrease in drug usage since digital mail was implemented? Well, I wish I could give that to you because it's actually skyrocketed.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
We've had more deaths and more arrests for contraband.
Oh yeah. It didn't slow nothing down. It seemed like it would have. I thought it would have, but it has not.
Well, here's the other thing. People want to get in this argument with families and officers about, well, visitors bring it in. Oh, no, it's the officers bringing it in. Okay. Data doesn't lie. Arrest reports don't lie. Officers are the ones majority bringing it in. And I really hate saying that because I'm not anti-officer. I'm actually very pro good officers, but I'm anti-bad officer. We have probably 90% more officers being arrested for it than family members. And that's only the ones that we know about.
Mm-hmm.
It's
so many people are seduced by money.
Correct.
You know? And I get it, you know, whether you agree with it or not, people, I mean, money talks, as they say, and that's what they seduce them with. When an inmate approaches an officer, man, and they finesse the conversation around to the topic, and like, I'll match your paycheck,
right,
for one drop. You know, you don't even have to know what it is. A package will be left here. You just bring it to me. You don't even have to know what's in it or whatever. I'll give you half up front, half upon delivery. However they do it, you know, there's a million different ways.
Yes, Amy, all staff, not just officers.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And honestly,
it could be anybody.
And honestly,
volunteers, all
more
that.
of the arrests have been not just staff.
Oh, I've seen medical personnel bringing it,
passing
out medication and SIG. They're passing out dope inside of medication boxes.
Like you've seen that?
I've seen it myself. Yes, absolutely. Benzoyl peroxide, baby. Yeah, stuff full of weed. Slide it right under the door. Keep on going, passing out pills for this, that, and the other. Oh yeah, nobody's exempt.
No.
It could be anybody. It could be chaplains. It'll be people that blow your mind. Plenty of school teachers. You know, not just COs. All kind of anybody that an inmate with a good mouthpiece and money to burn. Anybody they can get at, they're going to try to get at them.
Yes, but yeah, going to digital mail has
not had much of an effect.
It's had an effect. It's had a very negative effect on the drug game for sure, because it's gotten worse.
Unintended consequences.
Yes. While tablets were very necessary, so is tangible mail that family members and children and loved ones and wives can feel, because, you know, we do have family members that have been gone and they pass away, and that mail would have been the only thing they have, because they're not going to get the tablet. Yeah. TDCJ is not going to turn over the tablet and say, hey, here you go. Here's all the pictures and your letters that went back and forth.
The last member of my immediate family was my father. He died in 2001. You know, I was in administrative segregation when it happened. You know, I was like 21 years old. And I still have the very last letter, the last birthday card he ever sent me. Yeah. You know, stuff like that matters. In today's digital world, where so many people can barely even write script, much less cursive or anything. It's very fast becoming a lost thing if it's not lost already.
Yep.
But it just has so much more meaning. It has its place.
Not to mention these inmates that have to replace their tablets for whatever reason. Family members are paying $140 to get new tablets.
Mhm.
Well, they don't get to keep that when they leave.
No.
You have to turn it in.
I believe if you buy one, you might.
No, you don't. You have to give it back.
Even if you pay for it.
Yes.
Wow.
You have to give it back. So
free money. So you're renting it for $140.
yeah. And if you have a long sentence, you're going to be renting a few of them.
Yes. Yeah. They get stolen. They get sold to people that are on like medium and closed custody.
Broken in transport.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen them on the beautiful Torres unit. They go for about $300 to somebody in restrictive housing that don't have access. They'll pay $300 for a tablet.
Like a day?
That has no to buy it.
No, just okay.
As long as it has a media store on it, because they want access to the media store. Yeah.
So yeah, guys, there's all kinds of games with these tablets. I mean, bottom line, it's a money making scheme. Everything in TDCJ right now is a money making scheme.
Most things come down to $1.
We've got to fix it, y'all. We have to fix it. All right. So for next week, send me some topics you guys want to hear about besides just basic news, because we had enough of the basic news this week. Nothing. God willing, we have an easy week, and we don't have anything crazy going on. Nothing tragic. No more storms. No more suicides, death. No more staff getting in trouble. Let's have a positive week. So
yeah, let's do that.
And if you're interested in coming on here and being a guest, DM me. We need to start lining up people and getting these shows, booked at least a month out. So let me know.
And let people know we're back every Thursday. Life getting out of the way. Every Thursday we're going to be here, and we're going to be live, and we're going to bring you whatever's fresh off the press, and we're just going to bring life to you, man. For us, for our families, our loved ones that are incarcerated, for everybody, man. Let's shed some light into the darkness, and let's try to make it a better place. That's a good deed. It's a worthy deed. Something that we should be happy to pursue, that we'll be willing to dedicate ourselves to, even if it takes a lot out of us. It'll cost us a lot. Let's get it. Never regret doing a good deed.
All right, guys. We hope you have a good week. We'll see y'all next time. And thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys. God bless y'all.
I keep waving my hand to raise, and you can't.